Georgia.
Sorry, I was muted. But yeah. So a couple days ago, we had some pretty bad news. Um, 61 people were hit with a blanket RICO indictment. And if you know anything about law, RICO was originally, on the surface, intended for the mafia. Okay, these laws were intended to bring down organized criminals. But in Georgia, the same grand jury that indicted Donald Trump and friends indicted a substantial chunk of people that are in the leadership of the Stop Cop City movement. So, if you're a Marxist and you're watching this, you already know bourgeois law serves bourgeois purposes. But this is shocking and astonishing to a lot of people because, like, this is naked political persecution and abuse of the legal process. Well, it's not really abuse because for something to be abused, it has to be used for something other than its intended purpose. And the purpose of bourgeois law is to suppress and destroy movements that are in opposition to the ruling class and its purposes. So the ruling class in the city of Atlanta want Cop City. They want this huge police training facility. The people and what reactionaries, what the ruling class always does when they get ready to roll out the stick is say that these are outside agitators. These people are not from him. No, the Stop Cop City movement actually has massive amounts of grassroots support. People who were not involved in any protests whatsoever before this period. They are so impacted by this horrific situation that they're actually showing up to city council meetings. Again, these people never showed up to a city council meeting in their life, but they're showing up to voice opposition to this horrible project, to train police that will kill their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their cousins, and their sons and daughters. So, Democracy Now! I've actually become quite a fan. When I was too edgy, too revolutionary for you, I used to hate Democracy Now! But they actually have some good stuff. So, let's get some analysis from them before I break down the indictment. Are we in the bad place? Bruh, I'm a black man in America. I've always been in a bad place. What the fuck are you talking about?
Where the state's Republican Attorney General has announced a sweeping new RICO indictment against 61 activists and others he accuses of being part of a, quote, criminal enterprise to stop Cop City, a massive $90 million police training complex that's facing widespread opposition and ongoing protests. The charges were brought in Fulton County and approved by the same grand jury that indicted former President Donald Trump and 18 of his associates on RICO, or racketeering charges, brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who is a Democrat. At a news conference Tuesday, Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr and John...
What's up? I saw somebody on Twitter saying that, basically, to sum it up, that the Trump indictments and the Cop City indictments are two sides of the same coin. No. If Trump was still in office, he would have rammed this thing through. He would have brought down the feds on these people, okay? Like, stop trying to compare the ruling class spat between the ruling class Democrats and Trump, who markets himself as a maverick. Stop trying to compare the two or draw some type of parallel. Like fucking MAGA communists. I hate those people. Not just because they're reactionaries, not just because they're fascists in revolutionary clothing, but because they're fucking idiots. Okay, like these people that you're constantly trying to cozy up to hate you. They consider you communist scum. And if if you weren't so caught up on trying to generate clout for yourself, you would realize that they're fucking using you. Of course, how you can use a useless person is a mystery to me, but like, come on. There is no there is no fucking parallel between Trump and the Stop Cop City movement. One is waging a just struggle. The other, meaning Trump, is an idiot who got caught with his pants down and did some stupid shit.
Ron Fowler, head of Georgia's prosecution division, laid out their allegations and why they brought the case in Fulton County.
As alleged in the indictment, the defendants are members of Defend the Atlanta Forest, an anarchist, anti-police, and anti-business extremist organization.
I'd just like to remind my viewers that being an anarchist, being anti-police, and being anti-business are not illegal. There is a such thing in the United States as the First Amendment, okay? Like, people are free and able, at least on paper, to associate themselves with each other for political purposes. Like, if that was illegal, you should lock up every fucking lobbyist in this country. Because those are the people who have corrupted this political system. Well, it was already, like, inherently corrupt. But whenever you've got people that are able to run around and hand out, like, millions of dollars in exchange for congressional votes, because that's essentially all lobbying is, okay? Effective lobbying is nothing but political bribery. So if this guy and others like him were so concerned about horrible abuse and manipulation of the system, and like, you would be going after lobbyists. But because he is a ruling class lackey, a ruling class stooge, just like the idiot behind him, who unfortunately shares the same ethnicity as me, like, you're a fucking stooge, so you're going to go after these people who are working for the benefit of everybody, including your stupid ass. Like, that's what a lot of people, that's what these people don't get. Like, saving the forests are the lungs of the earth, okay? Like, this is old growth forest. Fighting on behalf of the environment when climate change is a thing, like, we will literally all roast to fucking death if something is not done urgently, immediately. Like, those people need fucking medals. They need awards and they need funding. Instead, you're dropping a RICO case on them. They're fighting for the benefit of you and for the benefit of your children. But you are so obsessed with money, maybe for hair implants. Well, I want to talk. But, like, you're so obsessed with money and doing what the money people tell you to do that you cannot see the big picture. Also, he looks like Hank from Breaking Bad.
We contend these 61 defendants together have conspired to prevent the construction of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center by conducting, coordinating, and organizing acts of violence, intimidation, and property destruction.
Why Fulton County and not DeKalb County? Georgia racketeering law allows that, and we availed ourselves of the Georgia.
This dude looks like he's gone through some massive twink death. I'm sorry.
Georgia racketeering law to do that. Anywhere that a predicate act.
Maybe him and the bald guy are doing something on the side.
Or an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy occurred in any county where that occurred is where you can indict the case, and we chose Fulton County. When you allege a conspiracy to commit racketeering, there's no requirement under Georgia law that they know each other. The whole purpose of the
What the fuck are you talking about? How could somebody be engaged in a criminal conspiracy? Let me go back. Maybe I misheard.
That they know each other. The whole purpose of when you allege a conspiracy to commit racketeering, there's no requirement under Georgia law that they know each other.
Well, Georgia law is fucking stupid. How the fuck can you engage in a conspiracy if you do not know each other? Like, come on. If I'm going to conspire with a couple other people to go, I don't know, do some heinous act, how am I going to work with them if I don't know who they are or know somebody who knows who they are? Maybe that's the loophole, but, like, that's fucking outrageous.
The whole purpose of the Georgia racketeering law is that they're all working in some way, shape, or form towards the same goal, and they formed a.
Okay. This is fucking dangerous. So they can come get you, lock you up, based on you being involved in a movement. Okay, by this standard, the entire civil rights movement was a racketeering operation. Like, thank whatever thing exists that RICO was not in effect until the early 70s, because Martin Luther King and the rest of them Diane Nash, Nick, all of them would have been locked the fuck up. Like, this is fucking outrageous. This is ridiculous. Everybody should be up in arms about this, because this is not just going to stop at whatever you see as radical environmentalists. I mean, everybody should be a radical environmentalist at this point in time. But this is not just going to stop with these 61 people, okay? Every movement that is dedicated to positive social change, okay? And you don't have to be a revolutionary radical. You do not have to be a Maoist. You don't have to be a communist, okay? By this standard, if you are a Quaker group that engages in nonviolent direct action against war, okay? Quakers really hate war. Their proper name is the Society of Friends. But are they going to lock up the fucking Quakers now because they oppose the American involvement in the war in Ukraine? Like, that's where this is heading, okay? Like, this seems to be like some type of test case to see how far they could push the envelope. This is fucking scary. A Quaker is a member of a small, well, they're not really that small, but Society of Friends. That's their proper name. And they started in the United Kingdom in like 16, whenever the fuck. And they're notorious for being pacifists. Like, they do not go to war at all. And there's actually a joke, like a Quaker gun is like a tree trunk that's made to look like a cannon to scare people. But they were also heavily involved in the abolitionist movement and a lot of other progressive causes. So I fuck with the Quakers. They're good friends. See what I did there?
Conspiracy to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that every person has to talk to every single person. All you have to do is commit one overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy with the others, and then you can be guilty of racketeering. So that's why, is because it's a large case, and so if you want to tie everybody together and they're all trying to do the same thing, racketeering is the appropriate charge.
In addition to the 61 racketeering indictments, 5 people were also indicted on domestic terrorism and first-degree arson charges. 3 people with the Atlanta Solidarity Fund were each indicted on 15 counts of...
I remember when this happened a few months ago. Like, it's interesting, like, how they're coming for this whole movement. They know that activists depend heavily on bail funds, because if you're sitting in jail, you're not gonna be able to do much. So they actually came for the Atlanta Solidarity Fund first, and they actually predicted this all the way back in February. Information has surfaced suggesting that prosecutors are preparing RICO charges. Again, this was way back in February. So they've been putting this case together since wintertime, and it's just now September. That prosecutors are preparing RICO charges against activists who oppose the construction of Cop City. While experts say there is no legal basis for bringing such charges against political activists, police and prosecutors seem to be reaching for any tool they can use to shut down even legal organizing against the increasingly unpopular Cop City project. Over the past year, police spokespeople and Governor Kemp have repeated talking points have characterized Stop Cop City protesters as terrorists who come from other states. Again, moving across state borders to display solidarity with a heightened level of struggle is not illegal. In court filings, prosecutors have taken the position that arrested protesters are guilty based on a cooperation with Defend the Atlanta Forest, which they claim to be a domestic violent extremist organization. State and local police have already shown their willingness to go far outside the bounds of the law to suppress protests against Cop City. Atlanta police have conducted violent mass arrests targeting journalists. Now, that is actually a war crime. Targeting journalists and aid workers. Like, you can't just go and fuck up Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, or the Red Cross, or any other NGO that's actually trying to help people. That is an actual crime. But what the Atlanta pigs did, and the Georgia State Police, what they did was they went and they, like, people were delivering water and stuff and food to the encampment. They just want to destroy that stuff. That's an actual war crime. So you have the lawbreakers RICOing people for allegedly breaking the law. Bizarro world. They have arrested activists on absurd and unprecedented domestic terrorism charges for allegedly occupying tree sits. Georgia State Patrol troopers shot and killed Manuel Tortorita Paez Terán, during a military-style raid on the South Atlanta forest, and then tried to claim Tehran had fired at them first, a claim which recently released body camera footage showed even nearby Atlanta police officers did not believe. Attorney Dan Samuel, a noted expert in Georgia RICO law, provided this statement. The Racketeering Influenced Corrupt Organization Act was originally enacted by Congress to provide a comprehensive way to fight organized crime, in particular the mafia. In 1980, the Georgia legislature passed its own version of the RICO Act. Rarely has a statute that was enacted with laudable purposes been so misused and abused by prosecutors. In Georgia, if two adolescents burglarize an abandoned building, basically engaging in urban exploration, they are subject to RICO prosecution if a prosecutor chooses to ignore the original intent of the legislature. If a man engages in illegal gambling and gives the winnings to his wife, if the wife spends the money, she could be prosecuted for violating RICO even if she was not engaged in any illegal activity and uses the money to build an orphanage. The notion that RICO would be involved to punish protesters engaged in a widely supported challenge to a government decision is a giant leap in the wrong direction. Threatening peaceful protesters with a seizure of their money and a 20-year prison sentence not only mocks the purpose of the statute, it represents an assault on the most important and cherished rights of all American citizens. The right to protest, the right to seek redress of grievances, the right to enlist friends, colleagues in the community to change government policy because the citizens want change. If the government of a state or county or municipality makes a decision, the citizens of that jurisdiction are not obligated to quietly obey. The citizens are entitled to object, to protest, to challenge the wisdom and legitimacy of the decision. Threatening citizens with prosecution for doing so is anathema to the United States Constitution and violates the prosecutor's oath of office. Threatening protesters, even if they trespass or engage in civil disobedience by labeling them racketeers and terrorists, is the behavior of a prosecutor in desperate need of finding another job. Nobody throws shade like lawyers. I like this guy. But yeah, so this was popping off all the way back in February. Okay, this is a blatantly illegal prosecution. Blatantly illegal. Like, even Republican prosecutors, just on the legal bona fides of this case, just looking at the paperwork, they would not pick this shit up. They would not pick this shit up. Like, they're basically criminalizing organizing. Criminalizing organizing. And this is from the supposed black mecca of Atlanta. If you're black, Atlanta is supposed to be the place to be. That's supposed to be the capital of black America, supposed to have replaced Harlem, which we stupidly let get gentrified. But this is what's going on. This is a neo-colonial system. You have a white Republican prosecutor in Fulton County working with black neo-colonial elements like this fucking pig that was standing behind the Twink death prosecutor. And that's how neocolonialism works. As long as we live in the United States, there is no black mecca. Okay? This could have happened in Detroit. This could have happened in my hometown of St. Louis. This could have happened in Chicago. This could have happened in LA. This could have happened in San Francisco. Most of these cities have black mayors. This could have happened in fucking DC, the capital of the country, and also known as Chocolate City, New Orleans. All of these places have huge black populations. But when a movement pops off, all you get is the iron fist of suppression because black, white, it doesn't matter. Money stands by money.
Money laundering for their work to provide bail money and legal aid for protesters. The indictment was issued on September 5th and filed August 29th. The indictment alleges the protests included violent anti-police sentiment that's now one of the, quote, core driving motives of protests to stop Cop City. For more, we go to Atlanta, where we're joined by Kiana Jones, a Stop Cop City organizer for Community Movement Builders, and Devin.
I love Community Movement Builders. When I upload this to YouTube, I'm going to put their link along with a few others in it. But if you're in Atlanta, you should definitely engage with them. Very principled group, very grassroots group, a very theoretically advanced group.
Franklin, a movement policy counsel at the Southern Center for Human Rights. He worked over a decade as a public defender in Atlanta. His group has issued a call for lawyers to represent the 61 people now facing RICO charges. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! These are late-breaking developments. Devin, let's begin with you. Can you explain what happened? Can you explain these RICO charges against 61 activists from the same Fulton County grand jury that approved the RICO charges against President Trump? But this was all led by the Republican Attorney General. Almost looks like a response to what Fani Willis did with the grand jury against President Trump and others.
She has a point. That very well might be what this is. Look, okay, you hit our guys, we hit your guys. Although the Cop City protesters and the Democrats are not each other's guys. But the idiot Republicans don't know that.
Good morning. Yes, it certainly is a response, but I would argue that it is a response to the larger movement that has been as it pertains to several matters of police violence and government prejudice. It's just a lot going on. And I think that the state has shown that they don't have a meaningful way to respond to what the people are showing that they want. And they are choosing to use the legal process in a essentially violent way to target protesters.
And could you talk about the indictment itself, some of the main aspects of it, Devin Franklin, and the number of people is extraordinary that are charged?
Yeah, it's really rare for this number of people to be included on an indictment. In my 12 years as a public defender in Fulton County, I never had a case that was this large or witnessed a case that was this large. I think that when we look at the number of people that were accused and we look at the allegations that are included in the indictment, what we see are a wide variety of activities that are lawful, that are being deemed to be criminal. And that includes things such as passing out flyers, right? A really clear example of First Amendment, the exercise of First Amendment rights. We see that organizations that were bailing people out for protests or conducting business in otherwise lawful manners have been deemed to be part of some ominous infrastructure, and it's just not accurate. This is really clearly a political prosecution, and yeah.
And how does it turn out that the same grand jury that indicted Trump and his associates was the grand jury on this particular case?
It appears to be so from the limited information that I've been given, and it could simply be a matter of timing. It could have been something that was by DA Fani Willis and AG Chris Carr. There's no way to know for certain, but what we do know is that for some point in time, for a period of time rather, the Attorney General of the state of Georgia, the governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp, have both expressed discontent with the success that has been gained by the Stop Cop City movement and the momentum that has been created in the streets among the people, and that they have chosen to use those things which they have at their disposal to essentially attempt to criminalize otherwise lawful activity.
Devin Franklin, what's interesting is that the DeKalb County's top prosecutor, the DA, announced she is stepping away from every case involving Atlanta's public safety training center, Cop City. DeKalb County District Attorney Sherry Boston announced she is out. She will not support these charges going forward. Your response to this?
I think it's telling. I think it's really telling because the DeKalb County prosecutor has, a pretty good reputation in the legal community. And for her to take a look at the actions that the Attorney General was seeking to go forward with in her county, and for her to say, I don't want any parts of it. I have concerns about the legitimacy of these charges. I have concerns about the intent of the charges that the prosecutor, Attorney General Chris Carr, is seeking. I think that it is kind of a unique way of saying the quiet part out loud, which is, something is not right. Something doesn't smell right with this entire situation, and I want no parts of it. And I think that will bear out as we get deeper into the discovery that is to follow the indictment.
And very quickly, before we go to Kiana Jones, your own center, the Southern Center for Human...
Yeah, I was just scrolling through Community Movement Builders website. They've got a lot of pretty good stuff on there. I encourage everybody to engage with them. If you're in Atlanta, join. If you're not in Atlanta, donate. Movements need money. And I've been following Community Movement Builders for a while. And it's not just because they have the same initials as the group from New Jack City, the Cash Money Brothers. But they do a lot of good work. Like, they are the exemplar of what a grassroots Black liberation group should look like. So I encourage everybody to engage with them in some form or another. Because Atlanta needs help. Like, this shit is no joke. And it could happen in your city next.
Human rights. Has it been named in any way in this? You have called for lawyers around the country to come help represent the protesters, but you yourself are a lawyer and you're a former public defender.
Correct. Yeah. In no way that I'm aware that we have been named in anything. We are essentially just trying to make sure that persons who are brought within the arms of the legal system have access to counsel. That's a constitutional right. And there is nothing unlawful about ensuring that people have fair, accurate, zealous representation when they're taking on a system such as what the state of Georgia is being at this point in time.
I'd like to bring Kiana Jones into the conversation, an organizer against Cop City. Welcome to Democracy Now! And your response to these indictments.
Thank you for having me. My response to these indictments is just the same as Devin's. We know that this is retaliation for anyone who seeks to oppose the government here in Georgia. A very clear message was sent with this particular RICO indictment. We see that the date on this indictment reads May 25th, 2020, the date that George Floyd was murdered. The date that people all across this country stood up and said that enough is enough. We won't stand for police terror, excessive violence and brutality, and the senseless killings of innocent Black people around this country. Since that date, this country has been upended by governments across the nation trying to build cop cities in order to quell protests, because the government is simply upset that people seek to oppose and use their First Amendment right to protest when we see injustice coming from those in authority.
And can you talk about examples of the charges? For example, handing out flyers, Kiana.
Yes, people were indicted for handing out flyers. And what those flyers contained, first of all, messages that say Stop Cop City, messages that give details about what Cop City truly is, that it is not just a public safety training facility, that it is actually a militarized training facility that would destroy 381 acres of forest land in a Black neighborhood where the city of Atlanta essentially had no jurisdiction in DeKalb County, but somehow backroom deals were made and laws were broken in order to acquire the land. Some of the flyers actually named the murderers of Manuel Esteban Paez Terán, known as Tortuguita. There is nothing that is wrong with giving information. So information that was obtained through public record that said, hey, there was a protester that was killed for sitting with their hands up. These are the perpetrators. We need justice. We want justice. I don't understand how giving out flyers with information is domestic terrorism. I don't understand how holding a sign that says Stop Cop City is domestic terrorism. I don't understand how opposing the government, using your legal right to protest, your right to freedom of speech, is domestic terrorism. And I certainly don't understand how attending a music festival is domestic terrorism.
And Kiana, what about this issue of the campaign for a ballot referendum against Cop City? The impact of something like these indictments on potential voters?
Oh, absolutely. This is the state's last desperate attempt to shut down the ballot referendum. We have been back and forth in court with Mayor Dickens and the city of Atlanta, also the state of Georgia, about the validity of this ballot referendum, which we know we have the right to under the Georgia Constitution, the same way Attorney General Carr went to the laws of the state of Georgia to throw together this RICO indictment. We searched the laws of the state of Georgia and the Georgia state constitution, and we know that we have a legal right to this ballot referendum. But instead, Attorney General Carr, Mayor Andre Dickens of the city of Atlanta have tried to
Andre Dickless. I had to.
tie us up in court to invalidate not only this referendum, but all referenda going forward, which is a very dangerous precedent that would be set, because what it says essentially is that if you don't like the laws that have been passed or something that's been done by your local government, then you would have no recourse. And I believe that that in itself is the ultimate pinnacle of anti-democracy.
It's not just the pinnacle of anti-democracy, Sith. The pinnacle of fascism. Like, fascism is the rule of the most reactionary elements of the ruling class. That is what we're seeing in Atlanta. Like, George Jackson talked about this. When you have the facade of regular ass people being able to seek recourse through legal methods, like through ballot boxes, they're fucking with the ballot referendum. They don't want them doing that. They ignored them. Like, remember, a couple months ago, they had like person after person after person show up to the city council meeting for public discussion. City council meeting for a public discussion. They ignored that. Like, they've been fucking with these people at every turn, and it now culminates in collusion between Democrats and Republicans to throw out a RICO indictment and charge 61 people. These people didn't do anything violent. These people were handing out flyers. Even if they did do something violent, so what? We live under violence every fucking day. Okay? Like, what is Cop City? Cop City is violent, is it not? Like, are the police carrying fucking dildos? Are they carrying furry handcuffs? No. They're carrying tasers, pistols, and mace. And this facility is going to teach them better how to kill us. So, you talk about violence. Like, I'm going to go through this indictment in a second and just point out the utter bullshit in it. But it always gets me how the ruling class of the most violent empire in human history, and keep in mind the Mongols existed, okay? This empire is more violent than the fucking Mongols. The functionaries, the flunkies, the lackeys of the most violent empire in human history have the audacity, the gall, the chutzpah to actually accuse people who by and large have done nothing wrong, even by the standards of their ruling class laws, of violence. Like, that is just the biggest hypocrisy in the world. It'll break your brain if you think too much about it.
Attorney Devin Franklin, all of these activists will be processed at the Fulton County Jail in the same way that Trump was and his co-conspirators? And can these charges be expanded to others? And as people organize for the referendum, as they organize against Cop City, which would be the largest such training facility in the country, does this completely derail it as they fight for their own vindication?
Nothing derails the movement. As Kiana spoke, there have been ups and downs throughout the entire period of this. But one thing that we know is that the movement has shown a great deal of resiliency, intelligence, and structure and organization. It's a wide-ranging movement. Black people, white people, heterosexual people, transgender people, environmentalists, social justice activists. It's a coalition of people who have come together around several issues and allow people to learn from one another about a variety of things. So I do not believe that this farce of an indictment is going to intimidate those members of the movement. To answer your first question, I do believe that the persons who have been charged at some point in time will go through the same booking processes as the people involved in the Trump indictment. It is too early to know if they will have the same access to
You just froze, Devin.
Let me know when I'm back.
Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, it's unclear as to whether or not members of the movement will have access to the same negotiation abilities for bonds as members of the Trump indictment did. We would certainly hope so. But it's really early in the process, and we are awaiting word of what that will look like.
Well, I want to thank you both for being with us. Devin Franklin, Movement Policy Counsel at the Southern Senate.
All right, so yeah, that's a good little 15-minute summation. Now let's delve into the fascist legalese. So, someone on Twitter who's pretty keyed in to what's going on down there actually pointed out that oh shit, I just had it. Where'd you go? Pointed out that like they're lying in their very here it is. They're lying in the first page of the indictment after you skip all of the names and stuff and all of the other legal junk. Like they're flat out lying. They don't even know who it's fucking owned by, or they know who it's owned by, but it's owned by the city of Atlanta, at least to the Atlanta Police Federation, Atlanta Police Foundation, Atlanta Police Fascists, whatever. So, line number 1. Each individual charged in this indictment knowingly joined a conspiracy in an attempt to prevent the training center from being built. That's the purpose of activism. Okay? Like, I could just read. Let's read this. Say this was Martin Luther King. Okay? Each individual charged in an indictment knowingly joined a conspiracy in an attempt to get the vote for Negroes. Like, these are good things. That's what activism is for. You're working to change things that you think are unconscionable. People are joining for various reasons. They're joining because they don't want to see the forest destroyed. They're joining because they don't want their country overrun with Israeli-style cops more than it already is. They're joining because they have friends and neighbors who encourage them to join. They're joining because they want something to do. People engage in movements for a variety of reasons, which makes this following shit even more heinous. Defend the Atlanta Forest is a self-identified coalition and enterprise of militant anarchists, eco-activists, and community organizers. Based in Atlanta, this anarchist anti-police and environmental activism organization coordinates, advertises, and conducts direct action designed to prevent the construction of the Atlanta Police Public Safety Training Center, also known as Cop City, and Shadowbox Studios, previously known as Black Hole Studios, and promotes anarchist ideas. Okay, there's a variety, like there used to be a statute, and there still is, on the books in many states called criminal anarchy. This goes all the way back to the first Red Scare, the Palmer raids, because anarchism was seen as like being the threat, and it was carried by Southern European and Eastern European foreigners. Okay, back in the day, anarchism was basically slang for Bolshevism. So, especially in the South, these statutes are still on the books, and they will use them. Like, you could totally find yourself being brought up on criminal anarchy statutes. And a lot of this was in direct response to the organizing of the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW. Because, like, they were scared shitless of the IWW because it wasn't a business union. It was a union that was solely accountable. I keep saying it was as if it still doesn't exist and I'm not a member. But, like, the IWW was the one union that they were scared of because it couldn't be co-opted. Like, any organization that has white people getting lynched on behalf of black people is a pretty dope organization. So the most radical organization in the country back then, that was the reason why these criminal anarchy statutes were brought into play. And they're still they are still scared shitless of anarchists. The purpose of these actions is to prevent the construction of Cop City in a movie studio, all while promoting virulent anarchist ideals. Virulent anarchist ideals. Okay, we just had somebody on. We just saw somebody on Democracy Now! We just had a public defender, a former public defender, and a movement lawyer, and we had Kiana from Community Movement Builders. Okay, neither one of these people are anarchists. Like, neither of these people are your black bloc, throw a brick through a Starbucks window, never bathe, anarchists of movie fame, okay? Like, I know anarchists. Anarchists don't act like that. Most anarchists, you know how most anarchists spend their day to day? Working, doing mutual aid, making zines, handing out Narcanning people, and working with the homeless. That's how most anarchists that I know spend their days. The average anarchist that I know hasn't even thought about throwing a brick or a Molotov since they passed the age of 18. But again, these people know this. But reality makes for bad TV. It makes for bad headlines. And it's bad for your political career, okay? You keep in mind, like, these people want to be reelected, okay? And in a state like Georgia, in a state like Missouri, in a state like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, all these southern and conservative Midwestern states going after anarchists is what gets you votes. Because outside of Atlanta and Savannah, in the college towns, Georgia is Republican as fuck. So, to get elected to statewide office in Georgia, even if you're a Democrat, you have to pander to the people who live in places like fucking Athens. Well, I think Athens is a college town. I don't know. I don't know much about Georgia. But, like, you have to appeal to people who live in the middle of nowhere, who live in red clay land. So that's what they're doing. Anarchy is a philosophy that is opposed to forms of authority or hierarchy. Beginnings of anarchist ideals date back centuries, though usage of the term anarchy did not exist until the 1800s. Over time, various philosophical forms of anarchy have emerged. Numerous anarchist philosophies they basically just paraphrased the Wikipedia article on anarchy. Collectivism is the idea that individual needs are subordinate to the good of whole society. Okay, you all literally had a president who said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. That is a collectivist statement. Churches are collectivist institutions. Anytime they pool their money together to help out a church mother that has cancer, that's engaging in collectivism. Collectivism is not a bad thing. Collectivism is how humans manage to avoid going extinct. Okay? Like, this whole I am an island, I need nobody bullshit that is so prominent in the South. It's bullshit. Okay? Rather, in a true collectivist society, the society as a whole decides whether the individual must forfeit their own needs or property if it is deemed to benefit the society. Okay, so did the landlord write this? Oh, they want to take away all 15 of my houses. Yeah, we want to take away all 15 of your houses because you can only live in one house at a time, bro. Housing is meant to be lived in. Housing is not meant to be fucking hoarded and issued out at a steadily rising rent. Mutual aid is a term popularized by anarchists to describe individuals who exchange goods and services to assist other individuals in society without government intervention. However, the major factor in our anarchist mutual aid is the absence of government in the absence of hierarchy. Okay, so you critique collectivism because it takes away stuff, too much stuff. It takes away things from people who have too much stuff and gives it to people who have nothing. So you criticize that aspect of government. But here you are lambasting anarchists for opposing government. Like, y'all are the weirdest fucking libertarians I've ever run across. You support government when it suits you. You support government when you own it. But when the people rule, it's totalitarian. It's horrible. You're taking away everybody's stuff. Indeed, an anarchist belief relies on the notion that once government is abolished, individuals will rely on mutual aid to exist. Who wrote this? Violence is part of the anarchism in some anarchist beliefs. Violence is part of the capitalism in all capitalist beliefs. Viewing their own violent acts as political violence, Violent anarchists attempt to frame the government as violent oppression. It's not framing it as anything. That is what you all are doing. You are coming down on these poor fucking people because they are peacefully opposing the development of a place that has colloquially come to be known as Cop City, a city for cops. You are using carceral state violence. You are threatening these people with 20 years in prison for running a bail fund, for handing out flyers, exposing the people who killed an innocent person who was just sitting with his hands crossed, his legs crossed, and his hands in the air. That's violent oppression. You're not being framed as anything. That is what you're doing. Overriding the will of the people. The majority of the people of Atlanta, the majority of the working folk do not want Cop City. That's why this movement is so strong, and that's why your indictment is not going to break it. But that's neither here nor there. Like, it's just showing, like, there are so many ideological and logical consistencies in this statement. Like, I can't believe that this actually has the force of law. This looks like it was written by a first-year college undergrad. Indeed, the belief is that the government is engaging in a form of violence by denying individuals basic needs through capitalism, government action, and law enforcement by police. You are. Like, all of these things that you say that you're being accused of, you're actually doing. There have been many books written on how you're actually doing this. You could talk to any activist. You could talk to any person who lives in a community that's been gentrified. This is what you all are doing. Why are you getting offended? Why are you getting viscerally offended? And why are you throwing a giant shit fit with this bullshit indictment of 61 innocent people? As a result, violent anarchists often engage in violent blah, 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 blah. So it just goes on and on. More bullshit. Other written documents known colloquially as zines. These people have never seen zines. Like, bruh, I've made zines before. It's basically just a collection of poems, artwork, writings, pictures, stuff like that. Like, everybody does stuff like that in high school. There's entire classes that'll teach you how to make zines. It's short for magazine, bruh. Like, you're acting like this is some type of subversive thing. It's pieces of paper folded together and stapled. Some are professional quality. These anarchist zines have been located throughout the forest and areas occupied by the so-called forest defenders, in addition to other locations where anarchists are known to be. Y'all are scared of fucking zines. I know the existing order is a paper tiger, but the paper tiger is literally afraid of paper. In addition to handing out documents, individuals who join the Defend the Atlanta Forest are offered financial, personal, and emotional support to remain loyal to the movement. Indeed, the forest defenders are provided with monetary, emotional, and personal support. Okay, not all of the Defend the Atlanta Forest people are actually in the forest, okay? Like, that's the case of any movement. For every five people that may be at a tree sit, there's 500 people behind them, listening to idiots like me talk on Twitch about what they're doing, listening to podcasts, donating, putting up flyers in their own town. So they're taking a small chunk of the movement, granted a vanguard chunk, a very, very important chunk. They're taking this small group and using it to cast this wide net. And again, the forest defenders have done nothing illegal. It is not illegal to sit or camp in the woods. It is not illegal to express views that are in opposition to the ruling class. I thought that's what American liberty was about. But we all know that it's nothing but a sham. We all know that it's nothing but a joke. We all know who the law works for and who the law doesn't work for. But shit like this makes it crystal clear. Most forest defenders are aware that they are preparing to break the law. And this is demonstrated by premeditation of attacks. No, that's what they call themselves, forest defenders. Preparation includes, but it's not limited to, disguising their face. Okay, COVID is a thing. So everybody that has a mask on is covering their face. Bringing changes of clothing to blend in after the crime is committed. Okay, you're in the woods. You want to change your clothing. Hiding in crowds and using technology avoidance devices such as Faraday bags and burner phones. Those things are not illegal. And memorizing or writing the Atlanta Solidarity Fund's phone number on their body in case of arrest. Okay, none of these things are illegal. None of these things are illegal. None of these things are illegal. There is no conspiracy. And as Kiana from Community Movement Builders pointed out, they're backdating this shit all the way back to 2020. So they're tying this together. That's why this is not just about the forest, okay? This is not just about Cop City. This is about movements in general. What they want is a docile populace that allows them to do whatever the fuck they want without recourse. That's what fascists want. They want you to go along. They want you to look at the Super Bowl. They want you to focus on your own life. Never mind the fact that forests are essential to the continued existence of humanity on this planet. Never mind the fact that Cop City directly lowers the quality of life of working class and black people in the city of Atlanta, which is supposed to be our Mecca, which is supposed to be our city. Never mind the fact that people have the natural right to band together and organize against things that are harming them or likely to harm them. That's just human nature, as the reactionaries like to say. But no, they just want you to focus on shoveling as much food into your mouth as possible. They want you to focus on sports ball entertainment. They want you to focus on video games. Shit that doesn't matter. And I look at sports. I look at video games. I eat a lot. I love food. But at the same time, we're not animals, okay? Part of what distinguishes us from animals is the ability to reason, the ability to think, the ability to look to the future. That's what distinguishes us. That's what makes us human. But subhuman police will not understand that. Subhuman prosecutors will not understand that. The forest defenders are the only humans in this scenario. So they're just talking about the history of the movement in Atlanta and why they're scared, why they're shook. Well, this is dope. As part of this autonomous zone, busy public roads were blocked by these armed individuals and gang members, effectively creating a checkpoint Charlie in downtown Atlanta. And on July 4th, auspicious day, 2020, the zone reached its pinnacle of violence. A MARTA bus had guns drawn on it as it pulled up to the autonomous zone. Several hours later, when a couple drove up to a barricade, a shotgun was pointed at them, and they were forced to turn around. Hey, maybe that's what the pigs want, you know? Like they're trying to take away or RICO away every legal recourse. Maybe they want another autonomous zone. I'm sure the people will be more than glad to deliver. So let's skip through to the meat of the indictment, because this is 109 pages. I don't think you all want me to bore you with poor pig understanding of anarchism and rants. Like, this is an ideological document. I don't care what anybody says. Communication from Defend the Atlanta Forest Management. Oh, are they running a business now? Defend, an anarchist group, has management. It's conducted in many ways. Indeed, communication among the Defend the Atlanta Forest members is often cloaked in secrecy, using sophisticated technology aimed at preventing law enforcement from viewing their communication and preventing recovery of the information. Okay, so why are you whining? Like, why are you whining? Why do you want to access? Why do you want to look at their phones? Why do you want to access their messages? Why do you want to eavesdrop on their phone calls? People have the right to privacy. Members often use the dark web via Tor end-to-end encrypted messaging app, Signal or Telegram, or use handheld radios such as walkie-talkie while in the forest. Additionally, Defend the Atlanta Forest uses websites to broadly instruct its members on where to go and what to do. I'm sorry, this is just a boring-ass document. Like I said, this could have been written by a college freshman that found out about anarchism from skimming a Crime Think article. It's obvious that they've been like stalking these people for a while. Here they are with guns again. In one incident, a civilian metal scrapper was trapped and held at gunpoint by forest defenders and forced to leave a forested area because he entered the premises to collect scrap metal. Okay, this is bullshit. This is shit that never happened for 5,000, Alex. Rest in peace. Shit that never happened. You're flat out making up shit. That's something that cops would do. That's something that pigs would do. This is important because, like, this shows that talking about shit that you don't know anything about can lead to problems. Like, anything you put up on the internet, anything that you put online can be taken and used against you or your colleagues or your comrades. So some idiot put this up on a blog, and the police are using it. I know who Tortuguita is. Tortuguita died trying to kill a cop in defense of the Willani Forest. We attacked the same machines that threatened the forest in Atlanta and everything wild, fired to the Earth Destroyers, until every cop is dead and all they defend burnt to ashes. Okay. First of all, those who know don't say. Those who say don't know. What that means is an old activist saying. It's an old criminal saying. Regardless. If you're talking about something, like, were you there? If you were there and you have 1 second in any movement, like, you would know better than to say shit like this. You would know better. Because you are fully aware of legal first aid. This is why it's important to read books. This is why it's important to talk to your elders who have gone through the same shit that you've gone through. Like, fucking first day gang member knows that you do not talk about shit on the internet that took place. So what I see a lot of leftists do online is to make up for their own lack of engagement with activities and activism in real life is that they get on the internet and they talk all day. And they speculate as to what people are doing. And that type of speculation is bad on several counts. For one, you don't know what you're talking about. For two, you put people in danger. For three, the police are looking. The police are watching. They monitor left-wing Twitter spaces. They monitor left-wing blogs. They monitor left-wing forums. They monitor everything. They have people who are literally paid to just sit on their ass and troll the internet all day. The fucking NSA. They scrape everything. Everything. They make the Stasi look like amateurs. So why the fuck would you say something like this? And four, it's just disrespectful to the dead. This guy had no fucking gun. He did not shoot anybody. The police walked in and they murdered this man. So this is the juicy part. This is what they're saying that the people did. Part 2. The defendants committed overt acts to affect the object of the conspiracy, which include acts of racketeering activity, as described below. Somebody threw a Molotov cocktail. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Somebody is accused of throwing a Molotov cocktail. Let's think. In an indictment, nothing is proven, okay? Shit is proven at trial. Then you find out whether or not guilty or not guilty. All of this shit is just conjecture. They can say that I walked up to a kitty cat and punched the kitty cat in the face, and I could be indicted for assault on kitty cat. That doesn't mean I punched the kitty cat. Whether or not I punched the kitty cat is determined during trial. Not that I would ever punch a kitty cat. On or about October 28th, 2020, Savannah Patterson transferred $100 to an unindicted co-conspirator whose identity is known by the grand jury for ammunition. This was an overt act that furthered to the conspiracy. Okay, like, these are just garden variety transactions. Radio communication devices. Like, it's not illegal to purchase ammunition. It's not illegal to purchase radio communication devices. Radio communication devices and camp fuel. Okay, they bought fucking gasoline. They bought fucking kerosene. $40? This shit was intended for the mafia. They deal in $40,000, $400,000. You're really beefing. You're really wasting time and energy over $40. They're talking about people's blog posts. Like, this is just, there's no meat here. Like, why are you fucking with these people? And it just goes on and on and on. Like, they've itemized these people's blog posts. This is crazy. Marlon Kautz received $298.54 in reimbursement from the Network for Strong Communities for forest monitoring equipment. This was an overt act in furtherance of this conspiracy. More blog posts. Forest kitchen materials. So are you going to fucking go through and indict everybody that engages in a camping trip now? Like, this is camping shit. Forest tools, $27.62. $52 for forest kitchen food. This was an overt act in furtherance of this conspiracy. Each and every one of these little items has this at the end. $256 for tools, rope, and tarps. This is like the TSA people that throw a fit because somebody has a sandwich. It goes on and on and on and on. And these are regular purchases. Okay, people need food. You're out in the woods, you need food. You don't want to starve to death. You don't want to eat pine cones, do you? Ariane Robinson did wear a ghillie suit in an attempt to avoid police. I'm sorry, this shit ain't funny. This is a serious topic. But in an attempt to evade police detection, and in a further attempt to occupy the DeKalb forest. This is an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Like, they don't know if these people did any of this shit. That's the thing. Oh no, a wooden board with metal spikes. Y'all have fucking guns. Oh, now we get into the level of cartoons. Serena Hertel did cut a rope in an attempt to cause an arborist to fall during climbing. This is an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Like, what is this? This is some Wile E. Coyote, Tom and Jerry shit. You all are really charging these people with this stuff. It's certainly something. I think this is worse than 1984, to be honest. And someone ran away from a detective. Yeah, nobody wants to be around detectives. Somebody possessed a hammer. Somebody possessed spray paint. Like, they're really throwing the book at these people. Like, this is going to be the standard for every movement prosecution in the future, especially in the South, especially in the Midwest. An organized mob of individuals. Somebody had gas in their car. Blah, 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 blah. Money laundering. Count 8. Money laundering. How much money was laundered, BRG? $27.62. $27.62. You don't launder that type of money. You put it in the fucking dryer to get all the wrinkles out. Oh my fucking God. Charity fraud. $256.16. Happy Meals cost $30 now? Nah. Inflation is a motherfucker, but not that much of a motherfucker. We ain't Zimbabwe. So they've itemized every aspect, every financial transaction that was conducted by these activists. And, bruh. Witness list. One dude. Ryan Long, Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They probably got more witnesses, but they're probably hiding them. So, yeah. That's basically the indictment in a nutshell. You've got itemized list of mundane shit. Like hilariously mundane shit. And then you've got an ideological rant. What's up, Jack of all trades? Glad to have you. So, what can you do? Besides watch my Twitch stream, which isn't really doing anything. It's more entertainment than anything, because I know I'm very funny to a lot of you people. Stand in solidarity. How? You can support the Atlanta Solidarity Fund. I'm gonna put links to all of this in my YouTube. Somebody paid for the group food delivery and is now stuck with the RICO. I sent pizza to the city council meeting in demonstration that they had. Maybe I'll get a knock on my door. You're not really a red unless you've had a RICO charge. So you can support the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, which I highly encourage. Also, my buddy Fergie, who's been pretty active in the Stop Cop City movement, donated $25,000 because he's a rich kid. He's actually been very principled with it. Like, this dude is the heir to like one of the like a major media empire, like the Cox family. And he's like, you know what, fuck you guys, fuck this money, fuck all this. I'm going to take it and I'm going to use it for communist purposes. So that's what Fergie's been doing. So he's a good guy. Even though I disagree with him on the Russia whatever issue, but Russia doesn't really matter. Support, and if you're in Atlanta, I definitely recommend you join Community Movement Builders. You can find their link in my YouTube description as well. Who the fuck is Shakespeare and why are they so famous? I don't know. Glad to have you though. Also follow Twitter accounts that are actually in Atlanta and that are throwing a lot around this, like Hannah Riley. It's important to follow these things and get like information, fresh information. And Community Movement Builders and everybody else also encourages people to like talk about this with people who may not be engaged in what we know as politics. Like, talk about this with your friends. Talk about this with your family. Because that's a mass movement. A mass movement is not just activists, and a tiny and ever-withering display of Maoists and anarchists. A mass movement is millions of people. It's going to take millions of people to stop Cop City. It's going to take millions of people to prevent another Cop City from ever being built. So, that's what you can do. I will catch you all later. I'll be here.